Zookeepers of Reddit. What is the funniest animal at your work and why? I went to the zoo Saturday and there was a man talking to us about the penguins. He told us he had raised most of them and their parents before them and knew them all very well, and even knew all their names. There was this penguin just hanging out at his feet nuzzling his pant legs, so he bent down and gave it scratches on its head and it leaned into them like a cat. That penguin seriously loved him. It was the most adorable thing I've ever seen. Our zoo had a tame fox. Someone had taken in a fox cub and hand-reared her but couldn't look after her when she grew. So the zoo I used to work at took her in. You could tell she had been hand-reared because she loved humans. She would wait for you to change her water bowl, so you would be bent over, and she'd jump onto your back. She would then climb along it, put her paws over your shoulders and lick at and nibble your ears. If you sat down while she was on your back, she would then plop on your lap and coil up on it. Nothing like waiting for the other keeper to finish changing her bed and realize that she had covered your back in paw prints, licked over both ears and was ONW sound asleep on your lap like a puppy. She would also do this in front of audiences, especially with audiences. It is difficult to change fox water bowl with a fox on your back and a group of giggling kids watching. Chimpanzees are extremely violent but have periods of levity. They play wrestle with each other and laugh while they do it. Gave our alpha male sunglasses and he put them on after I showed him what to do with them and he leaned back like the cool kid in class like it was no big deal. Not a zookeeper, but my girlfriend has worked at a reptile zoo for a while now. She said there's a pretty good consensus that tortoises are widely loved. Personally, I think it's cause of their pretty chill nature and the fact that they don't really give a crap once they get to be adults and no humans won't mess with them. In addition, they either look extremely happy or extremely unimpressed, which I think makes their actions pretty funny. She also taught the 3 Amazon parrots to whistle the Imperial March. So there's that. We need a video. It must happen. I did an internship at a zoo in Brownsville, TX when I was 12. It was mostly cleaning cages after the animals were removed by actual employees, but you've still got to interact with some animals. The hands down coolest animals I got to help out with were the meerkats. You could go in their enclosure to sweep, change out the hay, change the water dish, etc. And the little dudes would come right up and put their front paws on your galoshes and sniff at you, make noises, tilt their heads and stare up at you. They were so friendly and curious. Lots of them were juveniles and would follow you around the enclosure, riveted by every movement you made. I know this isn't very thrilling, but it's still one of the coolest things I got to do as a kid. Nah girl, that's awesome. Not a zookeeper, but one time I visited a reptile zoo and there was a room that had been converted into an enclosure for iguanas and tortoises. You could walk in and get up close with the reptiles, and while we were in there, one of the employees told us that one of the tortoises had a habit for trying to escape on a regular basis. Everyone in the room starts looking around the room trying to find this tortoise, and I look out the doorway to see this tortoise already out the front door of the building. Of course, somebody runs out and grabs the tortoise and brings him back inside. But over the course of a few hours, the tortoise kept trying to make a beeline for the exit, always making it out a few feet before being carried back inside. Everyone loved that dang tortoise. I posted this story in another AskReddit. This is from my former co-worker who now works for a really popular zoo in the US. Lion. There is this lioness that since day one of her working day has singled her out from the rest of the zoo team for lunch. Unfortunately, due to the nature of her job, she needs to be around all the enclosures in the morning animal counts. Lioness would follow her everywhere on pounce mode too. Been like that for 3.5 years now. Monkey. I can't remember specifically if this was a spider monkey. I need to check my email. But she told me one of the primate exhibits zookeeper who is a male is being harassed by a male monkey due to jealousy. Apparently monkey thinks that giving food to his GF monkey equals stealing your girl. Gets a lot of poop hurled at him and bites. The lion reminds me of an octopus. I forget the article, but an octopus decided it hated one aquarium intern and would squirt her every time she walked by his tank. She leaves, goes back to school for a semester, and the octopus is chill AF again. She comes back and he's a jerk to only her again. I was a keeper aide at the National Zoo in DC for a couple years. When I was at the small mammal house, they had an armadillo that would love to hump your shoes legs. and this little guy was not picky about it. It actually made it a little difficult getting in out of his exhibit since he would try to get all up in you pretty often. Frisky armadillo, new band name I call IT. My neighbor is a zookeeper and he loves working with the chimpanzees and the otters. Story about the chimp. He was closing up this one male chimp sleeping cage for the night and then realized he'd lost his keychain. He saw the chimp holding them and asked to get them back. Chimp refused. He then said, "Here, I will give you a banana for the keys." Chimp then proceeded to unhook one key from the keychain and hand it back to him. 18 bananas later, and the keys were returned. This chimp is quite famous in Scandinavia. He was rejected from his mom as a newborn and was raised with a zookeeper's family until he was reintroduced to the flock around a year later. There's books and TV series from the 70s about him. About the otters. One summer an otter escaped from their enclosure and was seen around the zoo amusement park, swimming around people who had hired rowing and pedal boats. He'd go up to guests to beg for snacks, etc. All summer the guards tried to catch him, but he learned to recognize their uniforms and stayed away. They finally succeeded in catching him when the guards dressed in civvies. There were little squirrel monkeys that were allowed to roam free at the zoo I worked at a few years ago. Those little suckers would steal everything. One of them jumped on me and snatched my sandwich right out of my hand. Capybara are surprisingly violent. Tapirs are just like big dogs. They like to roll over for tummy rubs. Capybaras will bite. They are vicious little suckers, but they are so dang cute. I volunteered at a pioneer historical site while I was in high school. We had a petting zoo that consisted of the usual farm animals, a cow, goats, llamas, etc. My favorite though was a donkey who had no tolerance for bulls, especially naughty little kids. This one little crap kept trying to pull his ears and tail, even after being scolded by her parents. Finally the donkey had enough and lowered his head to her level and let out the loudest donkey bray I have ever heard and made her cry. From the couple of volunteers I've kept in touch with, he still does this whenever he encounters a particularly naughty child. Out of everything a large animal like that could do, he was pretty chill, considering. Not a keeper, but at a small zoo I was at, an African grey parrot was kind of having a conversation with me, and like parrots speak, Harupori wanna cracker etc, but after a while this bird starts making static noises followed by really muffled speaking. I couldn't work out what it was until a keeper came by and their radio crackled followed by muffled speech. This parrot was doing a near perfect impression of his keeper's radios. African greys are like toddlers. They'll learn exactly what you don't want them to learn, except with both words and sound effects. My parents have one. His greatest hits are the microwave beep, the groaning sound my stepdad makes when he bends over, and lots of cursing. Not a zoo, but I studied at a chimpanzee habitat for a month or so. One chimp was known for climbing on top of a pole to wait for people to throw food to her. If you gave her anything she didn't like, she would throw it right back at you. I studied at a chimpanzee habitat for a month or so. It honestly took me a few minutes to realize that this wasn't just a really bad exchange student experience. Probably our armadillo, or macaw. Armadillo is just really awkward and cute. Our macaw knows some swear words that make me laugh, but we certainly don't encourage him because most of the time, children are in earshot. Worked with a green-winged macaw that would train herself when she got bored. Perch. Good gieiral. Target. Good gieiral. Wave. Good gieiral. She would run herself through all her behaviors. She wasn't actually doing the behaviors, just giving the verbal cues and then congratulating herself. The best was when she would say perch. Perch. Peh pause good gieiral like. Even in her own training session there were times when she wouldn't comply and have to repeat the cue. This same bird would also answer our radios. If she heard someone talk on the walkie and no one answered in enough time, she'd say go ahead, then she'd mumble like she was talking into the walkie. This bird was a stitch. All parrots have personality, but she was extra hilarious. Haha, that's so hilarious. She must have been bored, had to keep herself entertained. I don't have any input, but I just want to say I like this question. It is a happy question and I don't know why, but it made me happy. Thank you. Chutu Paoloza. I worked in a small zoo for a while. My favorite was the sloth. He liked me. When I went in to clean his enclosure, he would climb down and chase me. In slow motion, I would keep working till he got just out of arm's reach, and he would be waving his arms at me, hoping I would pick him up, then move out of his way. I was at a zoo in Berlin during the Bonobo feeding time. The zookeeper brings out a huge pile of diced vegetables, puts it on the ground, and as soon as he leaves, these monkeys start having a huge orgy. The interesting thing was that they were only having sex with the monkeys of their own gender. I'm talking monkeys jerking each other off and other scissoring. One monkey ejaculated a Pompeii level load onto the window. Afterwards they just all ate as if nothing had happened. Cool day. Obligatory not a zookeeper but a volunteer at a rehab place, and definitely the turkey vulture. He likes biting things. He greets you at the door every day and loves your shoes and his leash and a Kong. He is like a puppy but in vulture form. Sort of off topic, but since a bunch of zookeepers are potentially coming in here, is there a way to become a zookeeper without a specific degree, or really to get any kind of job caring for animals without a degree in zoology or some type of science? I'm in my late 20s, working in an office and not in a position to go back to school. Will be paying off my current student loans for a long time. I have a bachelor's degree in a field completely unrelated to animals, but caring for animals has always been my true passion. Is there a way to get into the field at this point, or is starting over in a school the only way? Not a zookeeper, but saw a clip of Monkey World on TV. It was so cute. The keeper was cleaning the chimpanzee indoor area and one of the females insists on helping every day apparently. He gives her a broom and she helps sweep the hay into piles. Then she stole the hose and helped wash down the floor and mop it. It was amazing. I had to stop flicking through channels to watch. She was brilliant. I know most of the animals are rescued and some from homes, so she must have done it before. Humans. Animals are fun and all, but my co-workers constantly amaze me with their ability to stay alive given severe shortcomings. That being said, love me some rhinos. Nothing that big should make those squeaky, happy sounds. When I was little, I went to a certain aquarium a lot. Whenever we went, there was a fish that would always follow me around. No one else, just me. I named it Friend Fish and I found it adorable. No matter what, every time I went to the exhibit, he followed me. Not really a zoo, but I do take care of exotic animals, one of which is a baby alligator. My boss had warned us to be careful when holding it because it could bite you and hold on for 30 minutes. However, we still handle it and bring it to school events. The real danger is the small turtle that it shares a tank with. That thing is easily the most vicious and bloodthirsty animal we have, and it will stop at nothing to rip your fingers off if you hold it. There's also this other animal we have. It's called a peeper and it resembles a frog that has been completely flattened. Its defense mechanisms are screaming and peeing, which I find hilarious. It also helps that the guy who usually talks about at events is always shouting moisturize whenever it needs a quick spritz. Warning to those who have tryptophobia. Do not Google the peeper toad. Not a zookeeper, but I work at a zoo. The harbor seals are by far the most curious. There is an underwater tunnel viewing area and they love to follow visitors. At night while cleaning the viewing glass, they wait for you to start wiping and will follow you around doing all sorts of acrobatic flips. They also all swim upside down to the water, which people find hilarious. My sister used to work at a small zoo in Virginia. Baby animals have to be fed every X hours, so I had numerous small animals in my house at times growing up that had to be fed throughout the night. We had baby goats, binturongs, ducks, servals, porcupines. The goat was adorable and romped around and climbed on things. Binturongs are arboreal, so he'd hang out on your shoulders. It scared the crap out of my little cousin when he jumped from my shoulders to his. The servals were just like cats. They were all over the place. I watched two litters grow up, legitimately from opening their eyes, learning to see, realizing that a wall in front of them, to milk over meat as they switched to solid food. I've picked them up and hugged them and moved them around. I watched my sister train them to sit before they got their meat. The ducks wore socks on their little butts to catch their poop. I've had a porcupine legitimately run across my lap while I was sitting on the floor. If it got mad, it would shake its quills so loud it sounded like America and back its butt toward you. Not a zookeeper but a regular at a zoo near my home together with my dad. He practically adopted one of the ostriches by constantly feeding him with toast, which was allowed. But most people won't dare come close because ostriches are pretty huge. The bird is pretty derpy, always trying to go straight through the fence to get to the bread, trying to eat caps and lines from my dad's jacket in winter and even performing a mating dance when he brought him toast. Not a zookeeper, but I own chickens. They come and tear up the front yard during the day, but in the morning they visit me before I come to school. They also love following me for treats. I give them treats occasionally, and then in the afternoon when I get home they come up to me as well. I'll get a picture soon, but it's honestly so cute. His name is Willy. He's an umbrella cockatoo. He does not shut up. He can say hello and goodbye, but that's not the fun part. If you go and talk to him and get close, that's fine. But if you try to leave, oh no, he squawks like he's dying every goddamn time. This goes on for at least 5 minutes, usually more. Not a zookeeper, but I've been working on a horse farm for the last few summers. There was this one horse. His name was Raphael and he liked to mess with me while I did my work. I'd put the hose in to fill his water after I'd cleaned the trough and walked away to start mucking. I'd always look over and see him with the hose in his mouth and he'd either throw it or run away with it. Regardless, it sprayed water everywhere. Sometimes he wouldn't put it down, so I would have to shut off the water and try to convince him to put it down. He would also do the whole head licking thing when you weren't looking at him. Then when you'd turn around he would look away like nothing was going on. It was inconvenient, but dang it if it wasn't funny as heck. Not a keeper, but I remember watching this wombat at Australia Zoo while a keeper was trying to clean his cage. It kept trying to tackle the man's legs while he was hosing the place out, and the bloke was doing all he could to keep it away so he could get the job done, which included using his boot to push it away, which the wombat didn't seem to mind. He relented at one point and gave the wombat a belly rub that it was seeking, but as soon as he stopped the wombat was back to headbutting climbing his legs again. I got to pet a wombat later, and I don't envy the zookeeper. They look fat but they are solid balls of muscle and built for pushing. Trying to keep one of these things away from your legs must be like trying to push a 35-kilogram rock as it pushes back. We have a turkey that is huge, ancient and a heck of a character. He's free roaming, but whenever he sees anyone in uniform he just comes up behind them and shadows them as they walk around. There's been a few times when my group of school kids have started giggling and you just know the dang turkey has come up behind you and is shadowing every step forward or backwards and started shaking his tail if you stand still too long. 2 of our staff got married on site and just as they were getting to the I-dos the dang turkey runs up the aisle and starts doing his mating dance at the bride. There's a monkey exhibit not far from my home. There's a chimp there who loves titties. He swung over the cage by my girlfriend, gave her a wave until she waved back, then turned around until she did it back, then pretending to lift his shirt hoping she'd do it back. Eventually she leaned forward and he rolled around on the floor in glee at the sight of cleavage. LOL. Actually were considered to be the same as Cory bustards for a very long time. As a mainly carnivorous bird their poop is just foul, like burn your nostril acrid smell. Thank Christ I don't work with pelicans or other fish-eating birds because that's just nasty. Not a zookeeper, but Ollie the bobcat has been the talk of DC since she escaped the zoo and has been on the lam. All local schools got text alerts. We think she wants to join the protests because that pea grabs back. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.